Let me ask you something. Have you ever opened your pantry door, looked at the shelves for a moment, and quietly closed it again? Not because there wasn't food inside, but because things felt just a little overwhelming. Boxes leaning against bags, a can hiding behind another can, maybe a bag of rice folded over with a clip, slowly sliding toward the back of the shelf. You know the kind of pantry I'm talking about. Not messy exactly, just a little crowded, a little chaotic. And when a pantry starts feeling that way, it becomes harder to see what you actually have, which makes cooking feel harder than it needs to be. Hello, friend, and welcome to the This Old Baker podcast. I'm Kim from This Old Baker, where we believe good meals start with simple ingredients and a well-stocked pantry. So pull up a chair here at the pantry table, and let's spend a few minutes talking about real kitchens, simple cooking, and the pantry staples that make everyday meals easier. And today, I want to share one small kitchen habit that can make a surprisingly big difference. I call it the one shelf rule. Now, the idea behind this rule is incredibly simple. Instead of trying to organize the entire pantry all at once, you focus on just one shelf. That's it, one shelf. Because trying to overhaul an entire pantry can feel like a big project. And big projects, well, they tend to get postponed. But one shelf, that feels manageable. 10 minutes, maybe less. You know, I discovered this little habit one afternoon when I opened my pantry looking for oats. Simple task. Just grab the jar of oats and move on. But when I looked at the shelf, things had slowly started stacking up. A bag of flour leaning on a box of pasta, a jar of beans tucked behind a can of tomatoes. Nothing terrible, but it was just enough to make the shelf feel crowded. And instead of reorganizing the entire pantry, I decided to reset just at one shelf. So I pulled everything off, just for a moment, set it on the counter, and suddenly something interesting happened. When all the items were out where I could see them, the shelf felt simpler already. Sometimes the act of clearing a space, even briefly, makes everything feel lighter. Almost like the kitchen took a deep breath. Take a moment and picture one shelf in your own pantry. Maybe the middle shelf, maybe the one where pasta lives, or canned goods, or baking ingredients. Just imagine clearing that one space for a minute. Not the whole pantry, just one small area. That's the heart of the one shelf rule. Small resets, not big projects. Now, once the shelf is empty, this is a good moment to give it a quick wipe. Nothing fancy, just a cloth, maybe a paper towel, a quick pass across the surface. You'd be surprised how often a little flour dust collects on pantry shelves, or a few crumbs from a pasta box. That quick wipe does two things. It cleans the space, and it signals a fresh start. Now comes the easy part. Look at the ingredients you removed from that shelf. Just glance at them. Flour, rice, beans, maybe a few cans, maybe a jar or two. Pantry staples, the quiet backbone of everyday cooking. And here's the question to ask yourself. Where do these ingredients make the most sense? Not perfectly, just logically. Sometimes grouping similar ingredients together is all it takes. Rice with rice, beans with beans, pasta near pasta. Simple clusters. When ingredients live near their relatives, they're easier to find later and easier to remember when you're cooking. Because visibility is one of the most powerful things in a pantry. When you can see ingredients, you use them. This is actually where the jar system can help a lot, because jars make ingredients visible immediately. Flour in a jar, rice in a jar, beans lined up neatly on the shelf. Clear containers remove the mystery. You know exactly what's there and how much you have left. I started doing this with mason jars years ago, and it changed the way my pantry works. Not because it looks fancy, but because it makes ingredients easy to see. Now, this is also where pantry mixes can shine. You know, those jars of soup mix or seasoning blends or baking mixes that are ready whenever you need them. Many of the mixes I share on this old baker are designed to sit right there on pantry shelves, waiting, ready to turn into dinner, because when your pantry holds a few dependable mixes, cooking becomes much easier. But back to our one shelf. Once the ingredients are grouped, start placing them back on the shelf. Slowly. No rush. Just set things where they feel natural. Sometimes the jars line up neatly. Sometimes the cans stack. Sometimes you discover you have 2 bags of rice, and that's okay. That's actually helpful information, because now you know what's in your pantry. You know, this is something people don't talk about very often. But organizing a pantry isn't really about perfection. It's about awareness, knowing what's there, knowing what you can cook, knowing dinner is possible without another trip to the store. And that kind of kitchen confidence builds slowly, one shelf at a time. Sometimes when I reset a shelf like this, I notice something interesting. An ingredient I forgot I had, maybe lentils, maybe oats, maybe a can of tomatoes. And suddenly dinner ideas start forming. Soup, casserole, a skillet meal. The pantry becomes inspiration again, not just storage. And that's really the beauty of the one shelf rule. You're not trying to fix everything. You're just creating one calm space inside the pantry. Today it might be the rice shelf. Tomorrow may be the baking shelf. Little by little, the pantry becomes easier to navigate, easier to cook from, easier to enjoy. If you enjoy printable guides or checklists, I also share a few pantry organization printables over on this old baker. Things like pantry inventory sheets and labels, little tools that make it easier to keep track of what's on your shelves. And those can make the one shelf rule even easier to maintain. But even without any printables, the rule still works beautifully. Just remember the idea. One shelf, 10 minutes, that's all. A small reset, a little breathing room for your pantry. And sometimes that's all a kitchen really needs. So the next time you open your pantry door and things feel a little crowded, don't worry about the whole pantry. Just pick one shelf. Clear it, wipe it, reset it. And you might be surprised how much calmer the kitchen feels afterward. If you'd ever like to see some of the jar mixes, pantry organization ideas, and printable guides I use in my own kitchen, you can always visit me at thisoldbaker.com. That's where I share many of the pantry systems that make everyday cooking simpler. From my kitchen to yours, I'm Kim from This Old Baker. Until next time, keep those jars full and something good in the oven.